I remember the moment things shifted for us. It wasn't some big dramatic event, just a peaceful morning walk by the lake, the first light breaking across the sky. Natalie had wanted us to spend more time together since the kids left for college. The air was cool, the scent of the lake mixed with the rustling leaves. I wondered when we started needing reminders to reconnect. We walked to the dock, hand in hand, the silence saying more than words. I glanced at her, noticing the lines that had appeared over the years. She was still beautiful, and in that moment, I wished we hadn't lost anything. But under the calm, there was an unease. Something unresolved. The dock stretched ahead, mirroring the unknowns of our relationship. My eyes wandered to the parking lot, spotting my 2013 Mustang Boss 302, gleaming in the sunlight. It brought a sense of comfort, but also a reminder of another love I may have neglected. I tightened my grip on Natalie's hand, trying to focus on the shimmering reflections of the lake instead. The piers were bustling with activity, games, food, entertainers. There were jugglers, stilt walkers, musicians, and, unfortunately, mimes. I dislike mimes. We had no set plans, just a day to be together and reflect. For me, we hadn't lost anything. Our once fiery romance had settled into a steady warmth, something we could nurture for the long haul. Natalie, though, seemed to think we needed that early passion back. We weren't as young as before, but my love hadn't faded. In fact, it had deepened. Leaving her now would be far more painful than it would have been years ago. Natalie thought our passion had faded, but I felt it was more about doubt clouding our connection. I led her closer to the water as a mime approached, and I felt a bit of satisfaction as we avoided him. "Let's take a boat tour," Natalie laughed, her voice lighter than it had been in a long time. I eyed the boat with skepticism. It looked barely seaworthy. The captain had a greasy smile, and the sailor was clumsy enough to trip on flat surfaces. The boat, named Guppy, seemed ancient, like a relic from another era. I wasn't exactly eager to get on. "Come on, Rob," Natalie urged. "I need my big, strong husband to protect me from the sea." The captain tried to reassure me. "Just a quick tour around the Great Lakes showing hidden islands and famous shipwrecks." "Will you show me where the Edmund Fitzgerald sank?" I asked. He looked at me like I was nuts. "No way. I've been on these waters since I was 12, and that place still gives me chills." Even Natalie seemed taken aback by my question. The sailor chimed in. "There are mysterious islands out here, some unmarked, some cursed. They say an old chief guards one. Strong winds keep anyone away." "But what about sinking?" I asked, still eyeing the rickety boat. "This thing doesn't look very seaworthy." The captain smiled. "This island is only dangerous in November. In summer, it's perfectly safe. But in a couple of months, it turns into hell. Strong winds that can strip the paint off, sudden 50-foot waves coming out of nowhere. Wow. Have you seen one of those?" I asked. He gave me a look like I'd lost my mind. "If I had, I wouldn't be here talking to you." Natalie seemed oddly charmed by this gruff, fishy-smelling captain. "Rumor has it," he continued, "that a Native American shaman lives here, in love with the spirit of the Great Lakes. They say there's purple lightning and eerie screams in the fall. Some even think those conditions caused the Fitzgerald to sink. We won't go to its resting place, but maybe we'll sail close to the island." I nodded and paid for the tour. If I had to spend 3 hours with my unfaithful wife, it might as well be interesting. I glanced at the other passengers, a diverse mix. 4 young women had already begun giggling amongst themselves. 2 were attractive. The third was a tall blonde constantly checking her lipstick, and the fourth was a curvier woman dressed to hide her body but wearing a low-cut blouse. Nearby sat an ordinary man, about my age, average in every way. If I weren't me, I'd think he was me. There was also a light-skinned black woman sitting alone, attractive with her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her loose clothes didn't reveal much, but her slender arms suggested she was fit. Opposite her, 2 nerdy guys were deep in conversation about what sounded like homework. The captain and his assistant started preparing the boat, and just as they were untying the ropes, 2 more men boarded. They handed the captain some cash and settled near the women. Both were big and young. One carried himself like he owned the place, while the other seemed to be his follower. I noticed Natalie watching them with interest. I moved to the other side of the boat, and after a moment, she joined me. "Nat, maybe you should go back," I said. "Why, Rob?" she asked. "I'm starting to see your point. Maybe we have grown apart. I thought everything was fine, that we still loved each other." "But we are still the same people," she said. "We've made mistakes. But today is about getting back to what matters. Remembering why we fell in love, leaving the past behind and stepping into the future together." She seemed sincere, almost pleading. "If we are different, I started. Maybe we should do what Steve and Eddie did. Rob, we don't need that, she said. Our situation is different. Edith is miserable, aged beyond her years. We just need to get to know each other again, to understand who we've become. She hugged me, her hand brushing my cheek like she used to when we first started dating. I sighed, realizing how long it had been since she'd done that. It's amazing how much small gestures can mean. I wanted to talk to you today, she said, but maybe it's better to wait. Let's just enjoy ourselves and see if the captain's spooky tour of the Great Lakes can entertain us. Might as well get it over with, I said. I'm not in the mood for any games. Just tell me if it's bad news. Rob, when two people spend so much time together, sometimes they experience life differently, she started. So we've drifted apart, I interrupted. And you want a divorce. Since the kids are in college, it's a good time, right? She looked horrified. Rob, why would you think that? I want us to be together, she said, taking my hands. We've raised two wonderful kids, made our share of mistakes, but you're still the person I want to spend my life with. And I'm not sure I want to be with someone who keeps taking another man's side over mine, I shot back. Are you jealous of the captain? She laughed, squeezing my hand tighter. Rob, I wanted to tell you that we've raised our kids, the mortgage is under control, and we're not even 50 yet. We're in the clear. But I think we have different visions of what's next. You seem ready to keep saving money and working until you retire at 65. That's what normal people do, I said. She gave me a sharp look. That's why normal people grow old without living. Today is the beginning of something new, Rob. I don't want a divorce. I want us to get to know each other again. I want you to cut back at work, use your vacation time. Let's travel, hike, visit places, and fall in love with each other all over again. Before I could reply, the boat rumbled to life as the guppy pulled away from the dock. It wasn't a smooth ride, but the captain and his mate were clearly used to it. As we moved away from the shore, I tried to get used to the boat's motion. Not a car, I reminded myself. Lake Superior is vast, the largest freshwater lake by area, big enough that getting lost would mean days before anyone found us. The captain talked about the lake covering over 36,000 square miles and touching 3 states and another country. But don't worry, folks, he said with a grin. I know this lake like my bathroom. Most passengers laughed, including Natalie, but it didn't amuse me. The captain had a strong, fishy smell, and I doubted he knew his bathroom that well. Or maybe the lake was his bathroom, which would explain the smell. For the first hour, the captain's stories captivated me. I noticed his assistant, Gilbert, glancing at the sky repeatedly. The guppy's ride was never smooth, but after about 80 minutes, the water grew rougher. When we started, the sun was high, but clouds gradually moved in. Now, the sky was covered with dark, threatening clouds. Gil had been watching them for a while, clearly concerned. Sorry, folks, the captain said. We're near a mysterious island I warned you about. The waters around it are unpredictable. We can't see it yet, but Lake Superior is acting up. Maybe I shouldn't have talked about it. At first, I thought he was exaggerating to cover up his poor seamanship. Any sailor should watch the weather. Even Gil had noticed the clouds. But just as the captain spoke, lightning struck close to the boat. Heavy raindrops started to fall, and we all hurried into the cramped cabin. Below deck, the weather got worse, and the boat began rocking. I have to admit, the captain and Gil did their best and probably saved us from sinking. The small boat rocked, and without the crew's courage, we might have been lost. Looking at the worried faces around me, it was clear we all regretted boarding the guppy. I heard a few passengers voice concerns about the boat's poor condition and the captain's fishy smell. Gil didn't inspire much confidence either. Now, our lives were in their hands. I'll sue, one of the women said. Sue who? Asked the ordinary-looking guy. The captain probably owns this boat, and it's all he has. If it sinks, what are you going to get? Maybe a useless wreck? Plus, you'd probably be fined for polluting the lake, added one of the nerds. The other nerd turned pale and ran to the kitchen sink, vomiting loudly. He may have been the only one to throw up, but he wasn't alone in feeling miserable. As the boat rose and crashed into waves, everyone screamed and prayed for it to end. Are we near that island you mentioned? I asked, terrified. No, said the captain. It's at least half an hour away. Time seemed to stretch, and my feelings were all over the place. Though it felt like hours, I checked my watch and saw it had only been 5 minutes. The boat wasn't just moving up and down anymore. It was shifting in every direction. The bow pointed up, down, sideways, and we were thrown around the cabin as if by an invisible force. Natalie clung to me, and I tried to reassure her. Our words were just scattered phrases. We're bouncing off the walls, I said, trying to sound calm. Wow, that was a big one. Then we slid to the floor, and I shouted, They're keeping us moving forward. I tried to stay brave, mainly for her. The muscular guy screamed like a little kid, and I couldn't blame him. He was young and scared. We all were. The nerds screamed, the women screamed, and I noticed two people, one who looked like me and a single woman, holding on strategically, finding the strongest spots. Suddenly, we crashed into something hard, followed by a deafening noise. I saw a large hole in the opposite wall, water pouring in. "We need to get out of here!" I yelled. "Everyone on deck!" With a hole like that, we were sinking fast. The muscular guy pushed past the women and ran out. I helped two women to their feet and got Natalie out onto the deck. The captain hadn't insisted on life jackets, so I began searching for them. "What now?" the muscular guy asked, clearly frightened. "I'm trying to find life jackets," I replied. "Me too," he said, opening cabinets. The captain and Gil were trying to patch the hole and contact help. I took out my phone, but there was no signal. The rain had eased, but the wind still tossed us around. We were all terrified. One of the women found the life jackets. "I found them!" she shouted. The muscular guy hurried over, pushed her aside, grabbed a jacket, and began handing them out. Then the boat hit something again, and the impact knocked us down. I saw the captain fly up and fall badly on his back. There was a sickening crack, and he lay motionless. We all held on to something, and Natalie clung to me, sobbing. The boat had stopped moving. I crawled to the captain and called for Gil. I checked for a pulse, but there was none. I looked at Gil and shook my head. "The captain is dead, isn't he?" whined the muscular guy. I nodded. "Oh, this is just great," he whined. "How are we supposed to get home now?" I looked around and noticed the boat had actually run aground. I climbed out and saw we were on a fairly large piece of land that we had stumbled upon during the storm. The others followed me out, and we found ourselves on a wide beach. "Gil, is there any way we can fix the hole in the boat?" I asked. He just stared at me. "Why are you asking him?" the muscular guy snapped. "Because he's the captain now, so he's in charge. We need a plan to figure out how to get off this island or signal for help," I replied. "We don't need to do any of that, Grandpa," he scoffed. "Everything is automated. Once the company notices they've lost contact with the boat, they'll come find us. All we have to do is wait. Besides, why trust this guy? He and the captain almost got us eliminated. Some captain he is." Ignoring him, I began walking along the beach. I noticed I was being followed and turned to see Gil, the muscular guy, and the quiet woman trailing me. The ordinary guy soon caught up. "Exploring the island?" he asked. I nodded. "We need to know what's here in case rescue doesn't come." There wasn't supposed to be a storm this afternoon. It was forecast for tonight and tomorrow afternoon. "George Ignatowski," he said, offering his hand. "Robert Sinclair," I replied, shaking it. "George, we can cover more ground if we split up. Gil and I will head east, and you and this lady can go west. Is your watch still working?" "Yes," he confirmed. "Let's meet back on the beach in an hour. We probably have about 3 to 4 hours until sunset, and the storm could start by then, if not sooner. We're looking for a cave or any natural formation to use as a quick shelter." He nodded, and we parted ways. As Gil and I walked, he seemed to snap out of his shock. "How do you know this is east?" he asked. "The sun sets in the west," I said. He nodded. "Learned that from a survival course?" "No, I watched a lot of westerns as a kid," I replied, smiling. "We found some rock formations that could work, but they needed some materials to make them suitable. There were many thin but strong trees and some large trees where we could cut long branches. From talking to Gil, I had a good sense of what supplies were available on the boat. After an hour, I knew what we needed to do to ride out the storm. I sent Gil back to the boat with a list of items to gather, while I returned to the beach to explain our findings. If George hadn't found a better spot, we'd use the one we had. Time was short, so we needed to move quickly. I was only gone for about an hour, and maybe it was just luck that I chose that path. This part of the area was a bit more secluded. Later I learned they had decided on a safety in numbers approach, pairing up whenever someone needed to use the bathroom. Unfortunately, or perhaps intentionally, when Natalie needed to go, no other women were available, so she went with him. I heard them talking as I approached. I wasn't trying to be quiet until I recognized her voice. "But aren't you married?" he asked. "It's no secret," she said. "I've been exploring my options for a couple of years. A friend of mine got caught, so I decided to stop, but maybe now isn't the time to give it up." Then I heard a familiar sound and his groan. I knew what was happening, but seeing it was different. I crept closer and saw Natalie with him. She suddenly straightened up, almost as if she heard me, but she was just checking the beach to see if anyone was nearby. "Why did you stop?" he asked. "We're just getting started," she replied, lowering her underwear and leaning forward. After a few minutes, he began to moan. Remember, those younger girls might be prettier, she said, but they won't do what I will. Since you're in charge now, I expect you to look out for me. If you do, I'll give you whatever you want. What about your husband? He muttered. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, she said. Just keep him busy. Send him on some errand to feel important. I thought I should have been shocked, but once she mentioned cheating on me for years, it all made sense. I understood why she suddenly wanted to rediscover our relationship. She had cheated with Eddie, and when Eddie got caught, she feared the same fate. That's why she acted like she wanted to rekindle things between us. It was all just to protect herself. What hurt most was how calculated she was, never considering me for a moment. Being practical, I pushed it aside. The storm was still coming. I walked away from the woods and approached the beach from the other side. There, I saw George and the woman. We met in the center, and George shook his head. We found a small cave, he said, but it's not big enough for all of us. The woman tugged his sleeve. Oh, yeah. We also found some trees with ripe berries. There were a lot of squirrels, too. Okay. Gil and I found a natural rock shelter. It should work for tonight. We'll need to use tarps and rope from the boat to make it windproof. We should start soon, I explained. No need for that, came a voice from behind me. While you were off exploring, we held an election. This is still America, and I'm in charge now. The two nerds, the muscle guy's friend, and the 4 other women nodded in agreement. So we didn't get to vote? Asked George. Wouldn't have mattered, said the muscular guy. There were 9 of us here and only 4 of you. I figured if no rescue came tonight, we could just sleep on the boat. No need to waste energy building a shelter when we had the boat. George and I shrugged and headed towards the spot I had found earlier. Hey, the muscular guy shouted. Where are you going? There's a storm coming, I said. We don't have time to waste on you. But I'm in charge, he insisted. We didn't vote for you, George said. You're not leading us. What about your wife? The guy shouted. Aren't you going to try to convince her to come or fight for her? You already said it, I replied. She's with you. I looked Natalie straight in the eyes, and she shuddered. I only fight for what's worth it. But Rob, Natalie began. George, the quiet woman, and I headed away from the beach. As we left, a buxom woman joined us. Dana, where are you going? One of the other women called out. Listen, Peggy, I know how this story ends, Dana said. 4 guys, 5 women, and I'm the odd one out. I'd rather take my chances with them. They have a plan and a reason for it, I hope. Once we arrived at the spot I found earlier, we introduced ourselves. The buxom woman was Dana. The quiet one was Ella. Ella didn't speak much because she didn't like explaining her accent. She called herself a crossbreed. Her father was half black and half Hispanic. Her mother was Irish, and Ella grew up in London. She was a librarian and proud of it. George, like me, was an engineer. He was mechanical, and I was in manufacturing. I explained my idea for strengthening our spot. It was at the bottom of a steep hill with a V-shaped notch that provided some shelter. My plan was to build a lean-to against the rock wall, blending it into the hillside. There were large rocks and fallen trees nearby to reinforce it once we settled in, especially to block the wind. Since the tarp was waterproof, my main concern was keeping the wind out. Gil arrived soon after, and I updated him. The tarps were larger and thicker than I expected, which was great. I sent him back for more supplies, while George started on the construction. Dana and I went looking for branches to use for the walls, and Ella went back to collect berries and anything else edible. When Ella returned with plenty of berries, I called her over and she smiled as she approached. I handed her the fishing rod. What should I use for bait? She asked in her careful accent. What? I said, pretending not to hear. She repeated her question, smiling. I still pretended not to hear. Dana walked over. George says we have enough posts for 2 layers of walls, she said. Is this because of my skin color? Ella asked. What? I said. I've asked you the same question 3 times and you didn't hear me, she said, looking hurt. Ella, that's silly, I replied. And I'm sorry you think I'm silly, she snapped. I want you to know. I couldn't help but laugh. Ella, I never meant you were silly, I said. I meant I was the silly one. She calmed down, studying me. I doubt you're silly, she said. And since we're following your plan, if I'm wrong, we're all in trouble. Ella, I kept asking you to repeat yourself because I love hearing you speak, I said. Your accent, your voice, everything. It's just magical. I could listen to you all day. We both blushed and turned away. Ella, I shouted as she took the fishing rod. Check the muddy spots for worms and try using them or some berries as bait. A few minutes later, she returned, pulling me towards a puddle. Attach this to my hook, she said, pointing to a fat worm. George began setting up, driving long posts into the hillside. From a distance, they were almost invisible, thanks to the angle George carefully selected. The next step was to drape a tarp over them and add another layer of posts to keep it secure against strong winds. I asked Gil to place a large, flat metal disc he had brought from the boat. In the center of the shelter, I added crumpled paper, wood chips, and pieces of dry wood, with some metal skewers above it, creating both a heat source and a stovetop. On his last trip, Gil brought several bottles of water and 3 cans of soda. Clouds started filling the sky. We all worked together to push a large rock and a split tree stump in front of the wall. We used smaller tarp pieces to make blankets, and life jackets were stretched out to serve as mattresses. Ella showed up with 3 beautiful fish as a finishing touch. "Look what I caught," she said proudly. "I'll take care of it," George offered. "I'll clean them." "Gil, help me with the first one," Ella added, smiling. I noticed the other 2 fish were still attached to the rods. After George took them from her, Ella walked over to me. "I think I'll stick to berries," she said. "Not really a sushi fan." "Well, not a sushi fan," I said, pointing to my makeshift stove. "How about this?" "What is that?" she asked, curious. "This is where we're cooking your fish," I said with a smile. "Smart man," she smiled back. "Maybe I'll try some after all." "Ella, we don't know how long we'll be here. We need more than just berries and greens to stay strong. Anytime we have protein, I need you to eat it. Fish, squirrel, whatever we find. Even if it doesn't taste great. Okay?" She nodded. "Rob?" she called. I turned to her. "I was just wondering," she said with a smile, "what fried crap might actually taste like." We both burst into laughter, drawing everyone's attention. Before we could explain, the first raindrops fell. We hurried inside our makeshift shelter. We left the damper behind the rocks open, but moved the log closer. After a few tries, I managed to get the fire started with my lighter. The small fire and open damper gave us light. I put Ella's cleaned fish on a spit and held it over the fire, turning them slowly. The smell of cooking fish was inviting. While we waited for the fish to cook, we took turns sharing more about ourselves. Dana had many questions. "I feel okay," she said. "Considering the situation, I feel pretty good." "But why didn't we wait out the storm on the boat with everyone else?" "Because the boat is perched precariously on the same rocks that damaged its hull," I explained. "It's unstable. When the winds pick up and the tide comes in, the boat could easily be swept off the rocks." "You mean they could leave without us?" she asked. "Or go straight to the bottom of the lake," I said. "The lake's over 1,000 feet deep in some spots," Gil added. "What about your wife?" Ella asked. "Pretty sure she can swim," I said. Silence fell, broken only by the crackling fire as everyone looked away. "Listen, guys," I began. "Today was supposed to be about Natalie and me reconnecting. I didn't think we needed it. It was her idea. But a few hours ago, I caught her doing something unforgivable if she wanted to stay married to me. I also overheard her talking about cheating on me for years. So whether we leave this island or stay forever, our marriage is over. It wasn't love that made her want to get closer. It was fear of getting caught. Honestly, I'm glad I found out. Now I can move on and find someone better before it's too late, so forgive me. Bad trash is best taken out. Let's eat." We ate fish and berries, drank water and soda, and talked about other things, including our plans for the next day. Eventually, we all fell asleep to the sound of the wind and rain against the awning. Thankfully, our shelter held, keeping us warm and dry. The next morning, we all got up to start on the tasks we had planned the night before. Dana was cleaning and organizing the shed, Ella was fishing, and George was searching for small game and berries. Gil and I were going to work on creating a signal that could be seen by passing ships. Dana also wanted to visit her friends. After some brainstorming, Gil, George, and I came up with 2 practical ideas for signaling. One was to build a fire that could be ignited instantly to produce fire and smoke, visible from afar at night, while the smoke would be more noticeable during the day. We also decided to retrieve the large mirror from the boat's bathroom, which would be a good way to signal during the day without requiring fire or power. We decided to start with the mirror as we approached the beach. At first, we thought they were all still on the boat, but then we saw them huddled around a tree, trying to keep warm. Though the sun would eventually dry them out, they looked cold and miserable. Then we realized the boat had disappeared. It had sunk. They saw us as we noticed the boat was gone. Natalie and one of the young women staggered towards us, followed by one of the botanists. They all looked terrible. "Why didn't you tell us the boat would sink?" asked the botanist. "You knew, didn't you? How did you guys stay dry?" Natalie asked. I ignored her. "Rob, we need to talk, honey," she said. "I feel like you're angry." "Okay, I messed up again. I didn't take your side, I was wrong. Gil, let's swim out and see how deep the boat is, I said. We can dry our clothes by the fire afterward. Hopefully they'll have something for us to eat when we get back. Everyone turned sharply towards us when I said this. Where are you getting your food? Asked the muscular guy, shivering. You took all the food from the boat, didn't you? Of course not, Gil replied. There's plenty of food on the island. You just need to know where to look and work together. Show us, Mr. Paish, Muscles demanded. We have work to do, I said. If you're part of the group now, you need to get up and figure things out. By the way, the forecast said it might rain today. What do you mean by working together? Asked one of the botanists. We all have different tasks, I explained. Some are cleaning our area, others are gathering food, and some of us are working on signaling ships. You took all the capable people, Muscles complained. That's unfair. You left me with useless women and nerds. I thought nerds were smart, but all these guys know are comics and Lord of the Rings. It's unfair. We should all regroup. I'll talk to our group at lunch and get their opinion, I said. Why don't you just tell them? He said. Because we don't have a leader, I replied. We discuss ideas and act on what we think will work. Everyone has a say. Why are you dry? Asked the blonde, her makeup smeared and her expression miserable. Our shelter is dry and protected from the wind, Gil said, and the fire kept us warm. Where did you find shelter? Muscles asked. We didn't find it, Gil said. We built it. Rob came up with the design, IG, that's George Ignikowski, constructed it, and Dana made it comfortable. Looks like we're with the wrong group, the blonde muttered. Gil and I dove into the water, swimming towards the rocky edge of the island. The boat was there, about 8 feet underwater. I took a deep breath and dove, but couldn't reach the mirror. Gil did better. He surfaced with a small grill. Not that I didn't like your cooking last night, he said. But this will make things easier. Another group began following us as we left. I turned and spoke to them. Less than 24 hours ago, you all made some bad choices, I said. You're lucky you didn't drown when the boat sank. I'll talk to my group about reuniting and we'll let you know. Natalie was still following me. Where are you going? I asked. With you. We're still married, remember? In the coldest voice I could muster, I said, Yesterday, while you were with that guy, you said what I don't know won't hurt me. You were wrong, Nat. Now I know, and I'm ready to leave you behind. When we leave this island, we're getting a divorce. We're done. She stood there in shock as Gil and I walked away. Over the next 3 days, the two groups had minimal contact. My group thrived. We used long sections of pipe from the boat as makeshift snorkels, which allowed us to retrieve the mirror and other useful items. The only real contact between the two groups was through Dana, who visited her friends every day. She returned with disturbing stories. The other group is near starvation, she said. Troy, the muscle guy, has become a tyrant, ruling by fear. The women, except Natalie, want to leave but are scared of him. She looked at me. Natalie's depressed. She thinks you've abandoned her. I have, I said. What else am I supposed to do? How would you feel if you'd spent 20 years loving and supporting someone only to find out they've been cheating for years? I wish we could start the divorce here and now. Don't you want to talk to her? Find out why? Dana asked. Why does it matter? I said. She wasn't forced or blackmailed. Even if something like that happened, she could have come to me for help. The fact she did it more than once means I don't want to stay married to her. Not all men are cheaters and not all women are faithful. I'm just unlucky. But I'm not going to become bitter. I'll find someone who sees things the way I do. That morning, I woke early and went to check the pole we had mounted on the cliff for the large mirror. The other group roughly shared the island. They had the beach, we had the cliff. It worked out because most of the fish were around the cliff rather than the beach. As I neared the cliff, I saw Ella sitting on the edge, fishing in just her underwear, a lacy bra and underwear. She was slim but curvy, and I wondered why someone with her figure wore such loose clothes. Over the past few days, we'd kind of paired off, except for Gil. Dana and IG spent a lot of time together, while Ella seemed to seek my company. We sat together at meals, and she often snuggled with me at night when it was cold, though that's as far as it went. I wasn't sure I could say the same for Dana and IG, despite the age difference. I was about to approach Ella when I saw them, Troy, his friend, and the two botanists coming out of the forest. They went straight for Ella. Troy grabbed her arm, trying to pull her away. I ran over, pushing Troy off and standing between them. What are you doing here, old man? Troy sneered. This isn't your side of the island, I said. We have an unspoken agreement because we don't agree with each other. As I spoke, Natalie and the young women approached from one side, while Dana, IG, and Gil came from the other. This is the land, Gil, IG. And I chose while you sat on your steroid-pumped bum saying we were wasting time. This land is ours. It's Dana and Ella's. You belong on the other side, I said. Is this Gilligan's Island? Asked one of the women sarcastically. I'm tired of all this, Troy shouted. I'm tired of starving, thirsty, being sunbaked all day and freezing at night. I was wrong. I picked the wrong people. I thought with Dave and me being the strongest and the nerds being the smartest, we'd have it all. Turns out my nerds are useless. They have PhDs, but who needs theoretical physics on a deserted island? I thought having all the women would be an advantage, but somehow you kept the prettiest one for yourself. We need to share resources fairly. You and the other old man are clearly the brains, and your friend's a hunter. If I take her, I'll have food. Since you want her back, you'll build me a shelter or give me yours, right? No, I said. That's nonsense, he spat. Dana talks to her friends every day, and while they talk, I listen. They all want to join you. I've heard them complain about us forcing them to sleep with us and having no food. Dana snuck them bits of squirrel and fish and talked about all of you. I know Dana's with the other old guy, and you and the English girl haven't done anything, but you like each other. So decide if you're building me a shelter or giving me yours. No, I repeated. So you're not even going to try to get her back, he asked. I won't have to, I said. You won't take her away? Before I could answer, a huge fist hit me in the mouth, knocking me back. Guess you weren't smart enough to see that coming, Troy muttered. You might be smart, but it's time someone showed you your place. As I stood up, he hit me again, this time in the eye. Stop, a woman's voice called out. Don't hit him again. I'll go with you. I'll fish, pick berries, whatever you want. Just leave him alone. Smart girl, Troy said, standing over me. I was furious. I hadn't fought since high school. No, I said again, exaggerating my struggle to get up. You've got guts for an old man, he laughed. You're the only one here who stands up to me. I swung clumsily at him, purposely missing. We don't need to do this, he said. But why are you willing to fight for her when you didn't fight for your wife? Easy, I said, still staggering. Ella is worth it. I approached him, pulling back my fist again. He smiled. I swung awkwardly and he leaned back. At that moment, I kicked him as hard as I could in the groin. His scream could have been heard across Lake Superior. As he doubled over, I brought my knee up into his face and he fell. His friend stared in shock. You were faking it, he said. You weren't that hurt. It's called cheating, I laughed. He's taller, heavier, has a longer reach, and is 20 years younger. Is that a fair fight? He was desperate, Dave said. We don't know how to survive here. Troy's always been hot-tempered and thought he should lead. On the boat, you had all the ideas. During the storm, he screamed like a kid, and it embarrassed him. When you left to explore, he turned it into a popularity contest. You should have played along instead of abandoning us. I think you were more mad at your wife than anything else. Troy groaned, still on the ground. And don't blame Troy for your wife, Dave continued. She offered herself, and he took her. She's not even his type. Too old for us. It was just for fun. Screw you, Dave, the blonde muttered. You already have several times, Dave said. And it wasn't great. The blonde, without makeup, didn't look as attractive, and she stood there muttering. Troy began to stir. Dude, are you okay? Dave asked. My gear, it's throbbing, Troy moaned pitifully. Ella slowly approached me, and Dave and the others couldn't take their eyes off her. She let her hair down, pulling it into a long ponytail like a black waterfall. Her chest strained against her bra, and her curves shook with every step. Troy tried to stand, then screamed in pain, almost passing out again. What's wrong now? Dave asked. My hand, Troy groaned. It's dislocated, I said, grabbing his shoulders to help him. He flinched away. Don't touch me, he snapped. Listen, I said firmly. Your shoulder is dislocated. The longer it stays that way, the worse it'll get. Lie down, shut up, and I'll try to fix it. I grabbed his hand, placed both my legs on his side, and pulled sharply. He screamed and then sighed in relief. Oh, damn, that feels so good, he said. You need to make an armband, I said. It'll be sore for a week, and even after the pain subsides, it'll be weaker for a while. You should head back to your side of the island and rest. Dave helped him up, and they all left, though there was a lot of grumbling. I suspected they'd soon have a new leader. Ella looked at my face, then ran off. Just let her go, Dana said from behind me. What did I do wrong? I asked. Absolutely nothing, Dana said. She's even more obsessed with you now. You got beaten up to protect her. Do you know what that does to a woman? When did she start really liking me? I asked. From the first night you told her how much you loved her voice. She said, Rob, do you know what women hear all the time? We hear, look at that A, or God, I wish I could grab those bosom. You didn't hear what Dave said about Becky? Do you know how hurt she is right now? Believe me, to Ella, you can do no wrong. I continued working on the mirror, adjusting it to aim the beam over the cliff and onto the water. I was just starting to remember we'd skipped breakfast when I heard hesitant footsteps behind me. I turned to see Ella. She held 2 square boards Dana had made for plates. There were greens and some type of meat cut into pieces. We had 3 or 4 pieces each with mugs of berry juice. She looked at me, then quickly looked away. What did I do now? I asked. Your eye, she said. And your lip. They'll heal, I replied. But they shouldn't, she said. I could catch fish for him for a few days. Maybe he could learn to fish for himself. Maybe I didn't want to be without you for a few days, I said. Her eyes widened, and she tried to hide her smile. The greens are different, she said. I found them underwater near where I fish. I asked Gil to dive in and cut some. It's like kale, but the taste is a bit different. I realized she wanted to change the subject. What kind of meat is this? I asked. Try it, she said, smiling. I took a bite. It wasn't squirrel, less fatty, more like chicken, though I knew there weren't any chickens on the island. Is this seagull? I asked, chewing. She shook her head. It's not pigeon, is it? I asked, taking another bite. IG caught it, she said. It's a snake. I spat it out, taking a long sip of berry juice. Rob, do you know when I realized you cared about me? She asked. I shook my head. It was when you told me to eat every kind of protein available, even if it tasted terrible. You didn't say that to anyone else. It mattered to you that I stayed healthy. So now I want you to eat your snake for me. It's not as tasty as fish, but it's protein. Better than nothing. From that moment, something shifted between us. We never discussed it or made anything official, but we became a couple. We also stayed together from then on. Since we couldn't store extra food, we began giving any surplus to the other group. When we brought them a bucket of fried fish and greens, they pounced on it, devouring it by the handful. Unlike us, they had no sense of sharing or teamwork. Each person just took as much as they could and walked away. One morning, a few days later, Ella and I were sitting on a cliff. She was fishing, and I was watching her in my underwear. Ella rinsed her clothes every day in the cool, clean water and let them dry in the morning sun. While her clothes dried, she fished in her underwear. By the time her clothes were ready, she usually had enough fish for the day. Once she put her clothes back on, she would rinse her underwear. Since we became a couple, we hadn't had intimacy, but we started kissing a lot. That morning, as she sat there fishing and smiling at me, I knew we'd lie on the soft grass and share long, slow kisses for hours. As I looked at her, she casually moved her hand up her side until her long fingers rested on her bra. She slowly pulled down the lace cups, releasing her beautiful pale tan bosom. Suddenly, it felt like teleportation was real. One second I was sitting on the grass 10 feet away, and the next, I was on her lap, caressing her, without any memory of moving in between. Suddenly, she sighed. Rob, I'm not going to stop, she said. I want you so much. Not even for that boat, she said. What boat? I asked. I stood up and looked out at the water. She was right. There was a small boat moving toward us. I ran to the mirror and aimed the beam at it. At first, it looked like it might pass by, but then it slowed down. Ella and I started jumping and signaling. The boat turned toward us. Gil heard our screams and ran over. As the boat got closer, we saw it was a small motorboat, no more than 10 feet long, with 3 people already aboard. IG and Dana arrived when they heard us shouting. In her excitement, Ella forgot to cover herself, and IG's eyes nearly popped out. We decided only one of us could go back. It was quickly decided that it would be Gil. They wanted me to go, but I refused. Gil could handle talking to the authorities, the boat's registration, insurance, and other details. They also reported our location to the Coast Guard, but cell service just wasn't working in the area. Why didn't you go? Ella asked as we watched Gil sail away. And leave you? I asked. That'll never happen. Good answer, she said. When Dana and IG went back to what they were doing, Ella and I headed to the other side of the island. As soon as we got there, everyone gathered around. Before we even started talking, I heard a small sigh. I looked up and saw Natalie noticing Ella and me holding hands. Where's the food? One of the botanists asked. Everything you need will be here soon, I said. We've been rescued. What? How? Dave asked. Mirror, I said. Ella and I were on the cliff fishing when she saw the boat. I used the mirror to signal them. The boat was too small for more than one person, so we sent Gil. They'll send a rescue boat. Everyone got excited, talking about the first things they wanted to do once they got back. I overheard someone ask if Ella always wore her underwear. and another person wondered what we were doing alone on the cliff that morning. "Who cares?" someone else said. "This is the end. We're going home." A little over 2 hours later, I leaned on the railing of the Great Lakes rescue boat, watching the island slowly shrink. I could still see where we had set up camp and wondered what would become of our primitive shelter. $1 for your thoughts," said a quiet voice beside me, his crisp British accent making the mangled line even more charming. "My thoughts are worth at least $5, I said. "Can I guess them first?" she asked. "That's a lot of money, especially for a poor librarian." "Okay," I said. I talked to Dana. She went back to her friends. She and IG talked it over. He explained to her kindly that what they had would always be special, but it was just an island fling, something that wouldn't work in real life. She agreed, said he was too old for her, and they both decided to return to their lives. "The island was just an episode," she said, looking at me. I nodded. "Is that what you were thinking?" she asked. "Were you trying to find a gentle way to tell me the same thing?" "Something like that," I replied. I watched her struggle to keep her expression calm. "Actually, I was just thinking that after our wedding, we could rent a boat and come back here for our honeymoon. Can't decide if we should invite some friends. And, of course, if we have kids, we'll bring them here someday. My other kids might want to see it too, depending on which side they're on after the divorce." The next thing I knew, she came at me so fast I nearly toppled over the railing. Somewhere in that tangle of arms and legs, our lips met for a moment before someone cleared their throat. I turned to see Natalie standing behind me. "Ella, can I talk to Rob for a moment?" she asked. Ella nodded. "I'll go try to console poor Dana," she said. "Is she on the list?" I asked. "Definitely," Ella replied, and an idea started forming in my mind. "Rob, what's going on?" Natalie asked. "You haven't said more than 10 words to me since you let me know you knew what I did. We need to talk about this." "I talked to Dana on the island," I said. "She told me something that doesn't make sense. I think you might have the wrong idea about what happened here. Natalie, as soon as this ship docks, I'm filing for divorce. If what you have to say will save me time, let's do it now. It means we won't have to waste time later," I said. "Okay, Rob, I don't know how you found out, but yes, I cheated before we got to the island. But I stopped on my own and decided to dedicate myself to making you happy. That's why we got on that damn boat in the first place, so we could fall in love again. I quit, Rob. I'd never do it again. That should count for something," she said. "It says something," I replied, and she smiled. "It says nothing. 0 is something mathematically. What else did you want to say?" "Well, you know Troy forced us all to sleep with him and the others." She knew I knew she was lying as soon as she said it. "Nat, do you think I found out about you and Troy?" I asked. "Dana told you, right?" she said. "No, Nat. You told me yourself," I said. "Before, you sided with Troy against me, just like you did with the captain. I was in the bushes. I saw you with him, heard everything. It's funny. A guy I can't stand cared more about our marriage than you did. He even asked, 'What about your husband, Rob?' I was scared," she whined. "I wanted the best chance of survival." "Well, you picked the wrong side," I said. "And I paid for it," Natalie said. "They treated us like trash. Ella only had to be with you. She probably even liked it. We were passed around without our consent, and those nerds were sadists." "Natalie, Ella and I haven't had sex yet," I said. "I think we'll wait until after the wedding." "You can't be serious," she said. "Are you really going to divorce me?" "That's the plan," I said. "Just like Steve and Eddie." "Rob, Steve and Eddie are nothing like us. They haven't been married that long, and they don't have 2 kids to explain it to." "Okay, I had physical engaging with some guys while I was with Eddie. It was just for fun. It was only Zex. No permanent partners. Just casual, nameless Zex. And I always came home to you. I never embarrassed you or did anything with our friends." "So what?" I said. "So it's as much your fault as it is mine," she said sharply. "I waited 20 years while you went to work every day. I was bored. I felt less than human." "Tell that to Oprah or Dr. Phil," I snapped. "After our divorce, write a book and be on The View. But don't give me that excuse. It's such a cliche. I worked hard every day to give you what you wanted. I bought the house in the neighborhood you wanted. I bought you the car you wanted. When you ask for those things, someone has to pay for them. My part was working hard to cover the loans. Your part was taking care of the house and the kids. If you wanted a change or a job, all you had to do was tell me. You could have said, 'Honey, I want to work and help out.' Even if the job only covered daycare, it would have been the same. Instead, you're telling me all these excuses, but you couldn't just say you were bored." She looked at me as if she'd never considered it. "Well, what you're doing is not the same as what I did," she replied sharply. "I had a few meaningless affairs with guys I barely remember. You went out and found someone to replace me." I laughed. "Are you laughing because you don't see your relationship with Ella as serious?" she asked. "How much time do you need with her before your wounded ego lets us get back together?" "Natalie, Ella could never replace you," I said. She smiled. "Ella is younger, smarter, prettier, and in better shape than you ever were. Most importantly, she believed in me before we even met. She listened to me and Troy and chose my side when my own wife wouldn't. As for time, I want to spend the rest of my life with her." "What will we tell our friends? What will we tell our children?" she asked, almost pleading. "I don't want to end up like Eddie." "Tell them whatever you want," I said. "I'll tell them the truth." Once we reached the dock, things really began to move fast. I'd already told Natalie I planned to leave the house, so she needed to find somewhere else. Since she couldn't afford the mortgage without a job or substantial child support, she agreed. She decided to move in with her parents and planned to pick up her things on Saturday. I got into my Mustang and drove home. Once there, I called the same divorce lawyer that Steve had used. Steve ended up paying Eddie very little, and I hoped for a similar outcome. I had another ace up my sleeve, actually two. While I was busy separating bank accounts and canceling all of Natalie's credit cards, she chose a different route. She called our kids and fed them a bunch of lies. She hired her own lawyer and fought every settlement offer I made. We went through consultations, and even our therapist was shocked by Natalie's behavior. The consultations failed but lasted 8 weeks. In a last-ditch effort to avoid court, we tried arbitration. That's when I finally understood Natalie's intentions. She was trying to do what Eddie did to Steve, squeeze as much money as she could out of the divorce. If she couldn't save the marriage, she wanted enough money to keep doing whatever she wanted. The judge didn't give her nearly as much as she hoped for, and what she did get was only for 2 years. After a few months of wild living, Eddie realized that being constantly available wasn't as fun as she thought it would be. She ended up lonely and broke. Natalie saw this and tried to avoid the same outcome. She did everything possible to delay the divorce, thinking that if she stalled long enough, I'd take her back. She even used our kids, her parents, and many of our friends, telling them lies to try to convince me to work things out. I begged her to accept one of my settlement offers to end it. The arbitrator was frustrated with Natalie's behavior. In the end, he just asked her what she wanted, hoping to use it as a negotiation starting point. Natalie continued to make absurd demands, saying that if she didn't get them, she wanted to stay married. One demand was $2 million a year for 10 years. Since I made under $100,000 annually, this was ridiculous. The arbitrator wrote a note to the judge about Natalie's behavior and sent us to court. Natalie didn't realize that court was the worst option for her and the best for me. Our adult children attended the hearing, and neither had spoken to me since Natalie filled their heads with lies. In court, in front of our parents and kids, Natalie made her last stand. The first witness my lawyer called was Natalie's ex-girlfriend, Eddie. By the time Eddie finished describing what Natalie had been doing behind my back, my son was furious, and my daughter was in tears. They no longer believed Natalie's lies. When my second witness was called, Natalie sank even deeper into her seat. She tried to have her lawyer block Troy from testifying, but the judge insisted. By the time Troy finished detailing what Natalie did on the island, even I was surprised. The judge used his full discretion in determining the divorce terms. State law required equal division of assets, but he had some leeway in how it was done. I had already given Natalie half of our joint bills and let her take whatever she wanted from the house. The judge allowed her to keep her car, permitted me to buy out her share of the mortgage, and set alimony at $1 per week for 2 years. Natalie had already spent the money from our joint accounts, leaving her in a tough spot. We had little equity in the house due to a second mortgage taken to pay for our children's education. Natalie also had to pay her own legal fees, and despite delaying the divorce at her request, her lawyer charged for his time. In the end, Natalie found herself in debt. Our house cost $110,000. We still owed $30,000 on the first mortgage and $40,000 on the second, leaving us with $40,000 in joint equity. I gave Natalie $20,000. She owed her lawyer $22,000. To help her out, I offered to pay all alimony in one sum. I handed her 5 crisp $20 bills and 16 quarters, then walked away. Almost exactly 6 months after leaving court, I found myself back on the dock. Ella and I looked at the massive ship moored there, and she squeezed my hand. "Daddy, Ella!" someone shouted behind us. My daughter Susan ran up and hugged us both. She introduced us to a modest young man, her boyfriend, and they boarded the ship. Both sets of grandparents were already on board. I was still amazed that I remained close to Natalie's parents, given they were my children's grandparents. IG and his wife waved from the top deck. I shook my head and Ella nudged me. "Be nice," she said. Dana arrived with a guy who looked like Gil. "You'll have to explain how they ended up together," I said. Troy and Dave showed up too, each with pretty college girls. The island experience had changed a lot in their lives. The botanists arrived alone. My son was already at the island. He had rented a helicopter and flown there as part of our backup plan. The only people who weren't with us from the island were Dana's 3 friends. They felt they had been treated badly and didn't want to relive it. And of course, Natalie wasn't there. It wasn't that she didn't want to come, but after our divorce, things hadn't gone well for her. Most of the men she dated weren't kind, leaving her with bruises and scrapes. Plus, the money she made as a receptionist wasn't enough to afford a nice dress. But the biggest reason she couldn't attend was that she was in jail. She felt betrayed by Eddie's testimony in court. On the other hand, Eddie felt abandoned by Natalie during her own divorce. So even though they were alike, they rarely saw each other. A few nights ago, they ended up at the same bar and fought over the same guy. The judge sentenced them to a week in jail for property damage, disturbing the peace, mutual attack, and public drunkenness. As the large ship pulled away from the dock, a smaller one followed at a distance. I wanted to see our little island again. We planned to get married there, and while everyone else slept comfortably on the ship, Ella and I would spend the first night of our honeymoon in our old, primitive shelter. The next day, we'd board a helicopter and head back for the start of our real honeymoon in Vegas. $1 for your thoughts, Ella said beside me. "Oh, I don't have to pay for them anymore," I said. "We'll be married in a few hours and we'll be together forever. I'll never do anything to lose you. I love you too much." "I could listen to you forever," I said. But what I was actually remembering was just before I fought Troy over you on the island. "Do you remember what I called this place?" "Yeah, you called it Gilligan's Island," she said, laughing. "No, what did I say? This is the land of Gil, IG, and me. Maybe the 3 of us should look into buying it." "Maybe not," she said. But we lived happily ever after.